The American Dissident. In a blog post I wrote a while back called "Can We Learn Anything from the Wall Street Bets Phenomenon?", I posited this question towards the end. Between Occupy Wall Street, MAGA, Wall Street Bets, various militias, the Libertarian Party, and other kinds of dissidents, comprised of tens of millions of people from different income classes, occupations, races, and even politics, I don't think communists have ever asked themselves an important question over the past 40 years. Are we even necessary? Why did I ask this? Because many communists will tell you that we are somehow needed to give the theoretically correct expression to existing proletarian movements within society. Today, that would mean against the fascist state. The other reason I asked it was because, despite 50 years of absolutely fucking up, it would seem that tens of millions of dissidents emerged anyways, without our supposedly valuable input or leadership. This signals to me that fascism has reached a point where it is no longer lurking in the background and people have felt its penetration into their daily lives for several generations now. Angles. The more the state proceeds to taking over the productive forces, the more does it actually become the national capitalist. The more citizens does it exploit. The workers remain wage workers, proletarians. The capitalist relation is not done away with. It is, rather, brought to a head. It is hard to scientifically pinpoint this demographically. I've tried looking at Pew Research, for example, which shows a 50-year secular decline in government trust. But we also have just normal, everyday people who might not call themselves MAGA, libertarians, or identify with any program at all, that are simply fed up. Here is someone I came across on TikTok, @SinkyFisherman, and I'll link to his profile below. I couldn't make heads or tails of who he voted for in 2016, 20, or where he lies on the political spectrum. But take a look at this video and tell me he is not ready to A, stop being a wage slave, and B, thinks it could be used as a weapon against the state.
So this is kind of the catch-22, right? You're aware of all this shit going on, but you can't do nothing about it. I feel you, dude. I'm in the same boat. The answer is you don't stop going to work. You keep going like nothing's wrong. For the sake of the rest of the people around you, the people that depend on you. You can't stop working. I'm not saying you should. Although it would really make me happy to see a couple 100 million people say fuck you to the government and start marching. You know, we're not paying bills, we're not working no more, fuck you. But until that day comes, you gotta kind of keep playing the game, you know? So, I guess, don't be too hard on yourself. We're all doing the same shit at this point. You must have money to survive in this world we're living in. It's that simple. Keep your head up.
Now, to answer my own question of, are we communists even necessary? I might only add, after seeing this video, that instead of this man basically being defeatist about the issue, we could explain to him precisely how his own intuition of decoupling life from work and life from the state is correct. In my next post, Rethinking Strikes, Their Demands, and Their Target, I tried answering the question myself as to whether there was anything praxeological we could do and came up with this. But what if instead of a movement that focused on getting higher wages at the workplace, or better workplace conditions, or being able to hang up LGBT paraphernalia or any of the other demands we commonly associate with a strike, what if the strike was simply to get the state to do what we know they'll never do, no matter who is voted in, no matter how much one party's base wants it, and no matter how much benefit it would be for the social producers? Reduce the size of the federal government. Did @SinkyFisherman have to read Stalin or Mao or Marx or Engels or Lenin or any communist theory to come up with what is basically the same plan? The American Dissident is basically everyone who has ever felt and experienced the wrath of the state asserting itself as national capitalist, increasing the rate of exploitation, and enslaving society to the shackles of labor time. Look how this one individual painfully describes it.
There are days when I kind of get, heartbroken, a little frustrated, especially when it's, you see certain things that people still believe that we live in a country. When it's a corporation, you don't have a government, and that goes for every country on this planet. Think about how many taxes you pay. Think about all the things that you have to ask the government to do, down to your fucking marriage. When you get a marriage, like, who the fuck you gonna pay for a goddamn license to get motherfucking married? What is that? And it's every fucking thing you do. And then you go look at your bank account and you view these fucking numbers and shit, and you ain't even looking how they just graping the fuck out of you and your children. You teaching your kids to be even better slaves. And y'all dumbasses are sending it, and I say that vigorously because y'all should just stop doing the shit, sending your kids over here to kill people that they don't even know. For freedom, and you ain't free. We live in the greatest country in the world. You live in the fattest country in the world. You live in the most unhealthy country in the world. You live in a country where we got the worst fucking food that fucking ever existed. You can't do shit without asking your daddy. Your government. It's a corporation. Your history's a big ass fucking lie. That's why mainly you ain't got nothing but motherfucking cartoon pictures and bullshit to make y'all think that y'all know everything. You ain't got no motherfucking discernment. So, you know, and patriotism don't exist. That's called Stockholm Syndrome. You will die for that bullshit too, because you don't believe in yourself. There's a million angles that came at you with. So if you're a patriot, and China hates us so much, and y'all hate the Chinese people so much, why the fuck is half the shit you buy made in China? Because they all in cahoots. And it's disgusting. Your education system is trash. Give me the math and a couple of those science experiments that I kind of liked, and let me get the fuck out of here. And I ain't doing 12 years to figure that shit out. 12 years in a concentration camp. Then they make you pay for your next level of education, but they want you to be so smart though. But you go in debt for the entirety of your life to go to college with a bullshit ass college degree. Ain't worth shit. And then y'all sending y'all's kids again, like you send them to the military, to lose their life, to college for a whack ass degree. And they can't get paid to play sports. Plantation. Goofy. Fuck out of here.
He describes the U.S. as a corporation, a plantation, a daddy government. Now, I don't know what he has read or not read, but are we going to dismiss his lived experiences under fascism? What exactly do we have to educate this man on? They should be our vanguard, not the other way around. We should be joining them, not erecting another church for the proletarian sinners who didn't read all the volumes of theories of surplus value. Now, some of you already know this. Infrared, for example, has decided to listen to MAGA and take them seriously. Again, I don't know where these two gentlemen lie in the spectrum of politics. I do know, however, that they didn't mention a goddamn thing about race or culture or equity. They were talking about the dreadful immiseration of the conditions of their material livelihoods as wage slaves and as wards of the state. I could be imposing my own prejudices on these, but it sounds to me like the American dissident is someone who wants more free time and less government. And, to Infrared's credit, they are at least beginning with the premise that all previous movements have failed.
You're fucking irrelevant, you're fucking losers, and the fact that my people are a minority in comparison to you means fucking nothing. Because you're not relevant, you haven't built anything to begin with. We're beginning from that premise, and we're trying to fucking build something. You're coming here and saying I'm a reactionary, because I don't give a fuck about your transgender retarded meetings where you're in the PSL or snapping your fucking fingers talking about nonsense instead of actually going to the workers and building a fucking movement.
Where we might differ is that we need to build what fascism has already built for us. Has would argue that we need to start with where we're at in the development of the productive forces. I have always contended that this is absolute overaccumulation of capital, resulting in superfluous capital and labor and the state as usurper of all private property. Now, I'm open to the idea that some other movement needs to be forged in order to help the dissidents overcome this, so long as those who say that this is necessary are open to the idea that these dissidents didn't come from nowhere, and that they have communist tendencies and proletarian instincts that no communist organization has ever succeeded in instilling better than the fascist state. Why? Because practically fascism is itself an alternative road to communism. Again, Engels. For only when the means of production and distribution have actually outgrown the form of management by joint stock companies, and when therefore that taking them over by the state has become economically inevitable, only then, even if it is the state of today that affects this, is there an economic advance. The attainment of another step preliminary to the taking over of all productive forces by society itself. In other words, fascism, ironically, has moved us closer to communism than any communist leader or organization has by vast leaps and bounds. But of course, this doesn't lead directly to communism, whereas fascism is an asymptotic movement that never quite reaches zero, no matter how far the rate of profit falls. Communism is the realization of the superfluous labor time that fascism manages as free time. And yet, empirically, the pros don't have to know this at all to come to the same conclusions as Marx and Engels did 150 years ago. The state must be abolished, and the workday must be shortened as the basic prerequisites of negating the mode of production. The face of the radical American dissident is thus not what we commonly associate from the 1960s and 1970s. The American dissident, whether they drive a truck, are a fisherman, or work a shitty desk job, is someone who has lived under the fascist material conditions of abundance for the state, yet scarcity for themselves. For long hours of work only to receive less in real wages and have their real consumption eaten away by inflationary fiscal and monetary policy, and who only ask to do no more than what is socially necessary so that they may thrive and develop as freely as they see fit, according to their needs, and that they may build real communities, not illusory ones that the state has planned for them to toil under like some company town in the middle of fucking nowhere.